You're listening to Underground USA News.
Monday, September 1st, 2025, a federal judge appointed by President Biden has halted the Trump administration's effort to repatriate over 600 unaccompanied Guatemalan children to their families, despite Guatemala's formal request for their return. The children, smuggled into the U.S. and held in federal custody, were set to be reunited with their parents in Guatemala, but U.S. District Judge Sparkle Sooknanan issued an emergency restraining order citing due process concerns raised by advocacy groups. Critics argue this decision prioritizes legal technicalities over family reunification, leaving the children in overcrowded, taxpayer-funded shelters, while cartels continue to exploit lax border policies. The Trump administration, working with Guatemala, aimed to address the crisis inherited from the Biden era, which saw tens of thousands of minors cross the border unaccompanied, with the Department of Health and Human Services losing track of 85,000 of them. The Labor Day weekend in Chicago was overshadowed by a grim wave of gun violence with at least 53 people shot, 7 fatally, across the city, highlighting the persistent challenge of urban crime despite false claims of declining rates. Notable incidents included a deadly shooting in South Shore, where a 25-year-old woman was killed, and another in Altgeld Gardens, where a 43-year-old woman was fatally shot by 5 armed suspects. A triple shooting in Pilsen claimed 1 life, and a drive-by in Bronzeville injured 7. As local authorities grapple with these tragedies, the looming threat of federal intervention, including potential National Guard deployment, underscores the urgency for effective local solutions to curb this violence which continues to devastate communities. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem sharply criticized CBS News for editing out critical details about Gilmar Abrigo Garcia's criminal history during a Face the Nation interview, accusing the network of whitewashing the threat posed by the Salvadoran national. Noem highlighted Garcia's purported MS-13 gang ties, human smuggling charges, and domestic abuse allegations, which were omitted from the broadcast despite appearing in the transcript with a qualifying note. This selective editing, Noem argues, undermines public safety by downplaying the dangers of illegal immigration, a stance echoed by conservative lawmakers who see the case as emblematic of broader media bias. The Trump administration remains firm on deporting Garcia, potentially to Uganda, as part of its aggressive immigration enforcement. Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, a steadfast conservative figure and ally of President Trump, was seriously injured in a car accident on August 30th in New Hampshire after his vehicle was struck from behind at high speed. The 81-year-old, known as America's Mayor for his leadership during September 11th, sustained a fractured thoracic vertebra, multiple lacerations, contusions, and injuries to his left arm and leg. Prior to the crash, Giuliani heroically stopped to assist a woman fleeing a domestic violence incident, ensuring her safety by contacting 911 and remaining on the scene until police arrived. He is reported to be in good spirits and recovering, with his medical team optimistic about his progress, as his son Andrew and fellow conservatives rally in support, praising his resilience and commitment to helping others. Federal Trade Commission Chairman Andrew Ferguson has put Google on notice, accusing the tech giant of engaging in unfair or deceptive acts by allegedly filtering Republican fundraising emails into spam folders while allowing similar Democrat messages to reach inboxes. This accusation revives long-standing conservative concerns about big tech's influence over political discourse, with reports indicating Gmail's algorithms disproportionately flag GOP emails, potentially costing Republicans significant donations. Ferguson's letter to Google CEO Sundar Pichai demands transparency on Gmail's spam filtering practices, warning of potential FTC Act violations that could undermine Americans' access to diverse political viewpoints. Google denies any ideological bias, claiming its filters operate neutrally based on user behavior, but conservatives remain skeptical, pointing to a pattern of perceived censorship by tech platforms. Representative Ilhan Omar, a Democratic socialist from Minnesota, has long positioned herself as a champion of the working class, but her recent financial disclosures reveal a staggering net worth of up to $30 million in 2024, a 3,500% increase from the previous year, largely tied to her husband Tim Minot's winery and venture capital ventures. Omar, who in February 2025 dismissed claims of being a millionaire as categorically false and insisted she was burdened by student debt, now faces scrutiny over the rapid accumulation of wealth, especially given her campaign's history of funneling millions to Minot's firms. Critics argue this financial windfall, coupled with her past payments of nearly $3 million to her husband's consulting group, suggests a pattern of self-enrichment that contradicts her public narrative of modest means. The lack of transparency in her financial dealings only fuels conservative concerns about conflicts of interest and the integrity of her progressive rhetoric. The Democrat fundraising platform ActBlue is under intense scrutiny as federal investigations uncover allegations of widespread fraud, including straw donors and illicit foreign contributions, threatening the integrity of American elections. Reports indicate that ActBlue processed $400 million in the first quarter of 2025, its strongest non-election period. Yet nearly half of its 2019 donations reportedly came from 4.7 million unemployed donors, raising red flags about the legitimacy of its funding sources. Federal authorities, spurred by a memorandum from President Trump in April 2025, are probing 22 separate fraud campaigns, many with foreign ties. While critics argue this reflects a broader pattern of Democrat corruption that undermines public trust in the electoral process, the silence from national Democrats on these allegations only fuels concerns about accountability within the party. A recent People's Conference for Palestine in Troy, Michigan, has drawn sharp criticism for its inflammatory anti-American and anti-Semitic rhetoric, with speakers openly calling for the destruction of the idea of America and equating the U.S. with Israel as imperialist empires. Clips shared on X reveal speakers like Mohammed Nablsi advocating for direct campaigns against the U.S. government, while Sachin Padada, a progressive international research coordinator, labeled the U.S. an evil country and urged dismantling American exceptionalism. The conference, organized by groups including the Palestinian Youth Movement and National Students for Justice in Palestine, also featured calls to wave U.S. flags at rallies to co-opt American symbols while denouncing its leadership. Critics argue this rhetoric, under the guise of Palestinian solidarity, promotes a dangerous anti-American and anti-Semitic agenda that seeks to undermine the nation's foundational values. Robin Westman, a 23-year-old transgender individual, killed 2 children and injured 17 others at Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis on August 27, in an attack authorities are investigating as a hate crime targeting Catholics. Westman, who legally changed his name from Robert in 2020, was reportedly influenced by a dark online network, including groups like 764 and the Order of 9 Angles, which exploit vulnerable youth, particularly targeting teens and transgender individuals with nihilistic and violent ideologies. In a chilling YouTube video posted before the attack, Westman expressed suicidal thoughts, regret over transitioning, and admiration for past mass shooters, while his manifesto included anti-Catholic, anti-Semitic, and anti-Trump sentiments. The shooter's mother, a former school employee, has refused to cooperate with investigators, raising further questions about the family's role. This tragedy underscores the dangers of unchecked online extremism, the question of the trans movement as a mental health issue, and the urgent need to protect children from predatory digital influences. The opioid epidemic has surged to a grim milestone, surpassing car crashes and suicide as a leading cause of death in the U.S., reflecting a profound failure of public health policy and cultural decay. According to recent data, the lifetime odds of dying from an opioid overdose have worsened to 1 in 57 in 2023, compared to 1 in 87 for suicide and 1 in 93 for motor vehicle accidents, driven largely by the proliferation of deadly fentanyl and prescription drug misuse. This crisis, fueled by lax regulation, overprescribing, and societal despair, underscores the urgent need for personal responsibility, stronger enforcement against illicit drug trafficking, and a return to traditional values that prioritize community and family over dependency. The staggering death toll, over 108,000 overdose deaths in 2023, demands a reckoning with the policies that have enabled this tragedy, rather than perpetuating the cycle of addiction and loss. In a strong affirmation of shared democratic values and economic partnerships, the California State Senate unanimously approved a resolution on August 29th honoring 41 years of sister state relations with Taiwan, while calling for enhanced collaboration in trade, technology, and cultural exchanges, especially as Taiwan remains California's third-largest trading partner, with $38 billion in annual bilateral trade, supporting over 120,000 jobs. This action, coinciding with the 26th Taiwanese American Heritage Week, highlights Taiwan's vital contributions to global stability and counters the threats posed by Communist China's expansionist ambitions, reinforcing America's strategic interests in bolstering free market allies against authoritarian pressures. Building on a prior 2024 resolution, this measure signals California's steadfast commitment to Taiwan's sovereignty and prosperity amid escalating geopolitical challenges in the Indo-Pacific region. President Trump revealed that India has proposed eliminating tariffs on U.S. goods, a move he described as long overdue, given what he calls a one-sided trade relationship that has favored India for decades. Trump's recent imposition of a 50% tariff on Indian goods, including a 25% penalty for India's continued purchase of Russian oil, has sparked tensions, with critics warning it could push India closer to China and Russia. The U.S. trade deficit with India, which stood at $45.8 billion last year, has been a sore point, with Trump arguing that India's high tariffs have stifled American businesses. While India's offer could signal progress, Trump emphasized that time is running out for a deal as he pushes for fairer trade terms to bolster U.S. economic interests. At the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Tianjin, Chinese President Xi Jinping positioned China as a counterweight to U.S. dominance, criticizing bullying practices and advocating for a multipolar world order while pledging $280 million in grants and $1.4 billion in loans to SCO nations. Joined by leaders like Russia's Vladimir Putin and India's Narendra Modi, Xi emphasized economic integration and security cooperation, subtly challenging Western alliances amid ongoing trade tensions and geopolitical shifts. This summit, China's largest diplomatic event of 2025, underscores Beijing's ambition to reshape global governance, raising concerns about diminishing American influence as nations align with China's vision. Thousands of Australians, including prominent figures like Pauline Hanson, rallied across major cities on August 31st to protest mass immigration, voicing concerns over cultural identity, economic strain, and infrastructure overload. The March for Australia events, marked by Australian flags and slogans like "Fuck off, we're full," drew significant counter-protests from anti-racism groups, leading to physical clashes in cities like Melbourne and Canberra. Police intervened with pepper spray and mounted units to separate the groups as political leaders, including Susan Ley and Murray Watt, condemned the rallies for threatening social cohesion while urging calm. Critics of the protests highlighted flaws in Australia's immigration system, arguing it allows unprepared migrants to enter, fueling public discontent. These rallies underscore a growing divide over immigration policy, with many Australians demanding stronger border controls to preserve national identity and resources. In a significant victory for global security, Iraqi forces, supported by US-led coalition intelligence, eliminated a senior Islamic State leader in a precise airstrike in western Iraq, dealing a major blow to the terrorist organization's efforts to regroup. The operation, confirmed by both Iraqi and US officials, targeted Abdullah Maki Musli al-Rifa, identified as the head of ISIS's most senior decision-making body, underscoring the effectiveness of coordinated military and intelligence efforts. This strike comes as ISIS attempts to reconstitute in Syria, with recent reports indicating increased attacks since the group lost territorial control. The joint mission reflects Iraq's commitment to rooting out terrorism while maintaining strong bilateral security ties with the United States as both nations work to prevent an ISIS resurgence. In a troubling escalation of tensions, Bulgarian authorities suspect Russia deliberately jammed the GPS systems of a plane carrying European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen as it flew over Bulgaria on Sunday, forcing pilots to rely on paper maps to land safely at Plovdiv Airport. The incident, which occurred during von der Leyen's tour of EU nations bordering Russia and Belarus, underscores Moscow's aggressive tactics amid ongoing conflicts, particularly as the EU ramps up defense spending and support for Ukraine. While the Kremlin denies involvement, this act of suspected hybrid warfare highlights the growing threat of Russian interference in European security, raising concerns about the safety of critical navigation systems and the broader geopolitical implications. The U.S. is strengthening its strategic posture in the Indo-Pacific by deploying the Typhoon mid-range capability missile system to Japan for the Resolute Dragon exercise, a move that has drawn sharp criticism from China for escalating regional tensions. Capable of firing SM-6 and Tomahawk missiles with ranges up to 1,600 kilometers, the Typhoon enhances U.S. deterrence against potential Chinese aggression, particularly in contested areas like the South China Sea and Taiwan. This follows its deployment in the Philippines and Australia, where it has already provoked Beijing's ire, with China warning of a potential arms race. While Japan's hosting of the system is temporary, it signals a robust U.S. commitment to countering China's growing military influence, prioritizing regional stability through strength. In a significant shift, major U.S. and Canadian banks, including all 6 of America's largest, have exited the UN-backed Net Zero Banking Alliance, prompting cautious optimism among conservative critics who view the move as a rejection of overreaching global climate mandates. Utah Treasurer Marlo Oaks noted it's encouraging to see these alliances unravel, though he warned against premature celebration, suggesting the departures may stem more from legal fears than a genuine shift in ideology. The bank's withdrawal follows scrutiny from Republican-led probes into ESG commitments, with Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton ending investigations into banks like Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan Chase after their exit, citing concerns over unlawful ESG commitments. However, analysts caution that banks may still pursue sustainability goals, independently raising questions about the long-term impact on fossil fuel financing and economic priorities.
You're listening to Underground USA News.